Now, we'll just begin today's podcast by prefacing it with a bit of an explanation as to who this guest is. If you're sitting out there in the tractor and you aren't familiar with this woman's work, her name is Dasha Nekrasova. She is a Brooklyn, New York-based filmmaker, screenplay writer, and, of course, actor. She stars in Succession on HBO. Incredible series. You've been watching that one, Errol?
I haven't, no. I don't have a television.
Well, you spent enough time working around the Murdochs in your career. You'd
Yeah, mate, don't need any soap opera for me, mate. Maybe for you regional journalists, but for real journalists like me, mate, I've done this stuff.
Well, it's all there now on HBO or Binge or wherever the hell you're getting it, Foxtel in Australia. Some people are, getting it through, more unorthodox means. But great program, and she's actually been kind enough to be interviewed by us today. Now, she also is the co-host of a countercultural podcast, quite a popular one, in the shape of the Red Scare podcast. It's actually quite interesting stuff. Yeah, very anti-establishment and, big, I guess you'd say, bastion of free speech in the podcast realm, the Red Scare podcast. Now, Dasha has made it clear on her podcast over the years that she actually dislikes Australians, like a lot of New Yorkers do. There's plenty of us over there, and we love talking about ourselves and getting drunk and getting rowdy. So very kind of her to be interviewed by us. And also, as you'll hear in this interview, very kind of her to be patient with us as we ask her questions about the indie film industry, which we know little about. The last indie film I watched was The Nugget, starring Eric Bana. It certainly has nothing on her new movie, which is out soon, The Scary of 61st. It's got rave reviews already, and it'll be out in Australia over Christmas. So please enjoy this interview with Dasha Nekrasova. Welcome back to the Batuta Advocate Radio Show, recording live here from downtown Batuta in the Old City District, Desert Rock FM studios. You're joined by myself, Clancy Overall, and of course Errol Parker, editor-at-large. How are you, Errol?
I'm all right, mate. Good morning.
Yeah, it's going all right. Silly season's here, starting to heat up, plenty of rain, so everyone seems to be happy. Mm-hmm. We are quite happy too. I guess you could say, a lot of farmers out there bringing in a harvest,
As long as the farmers are happy, mate, the country's happy.
Cattle prices are good, beef prices are good, so long as China's still going to keep buying that off us. We're doing all right.
For the time being.
We've had a bit of a coup of our own here at the Batuta Advocate in the shape of today's guest on the podcast. Very, very lucky to get our interview locked in with today's guest, Dasha Nekrasova.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. Big fans of your stuff, big fans of the podcast that you run, Red Scare. You've been described in a similar kind of description that you get as we get of, what was it that we read there in our research, was that you are a hero and icon on certain quarters of the internet, which is basically how people describe us as well. So lovely to meet you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, an interesting thing happened this week in Australian media, where one of the major TV networks paid $1 million for an interview with Adele.
What?
And yeah,
she's an English pop star.
Yeah. And they sent an entertainment reporter who looks and sounds exactly like you imagine right now over to London to interview her. And Adele walked out within 10 minutes when it was revealed that he had not listened to her album, which is just so classic.
Wow. Classic Australia.
But luckily, your distributor was kind enough to send us a screener, which I watched last night, of your new film, Scary of 61st. And I thought it was such a breath of fresh air. I mean, like how it was almost like it was filmed on like a 16 millimeter. It just had this really warm, but also very familiar, but retro feel to it. Did you start out to achieve that when you started to make it?
Yeah. I mean, I did shoot it on 16 millimeter.
Oh, well, there you go. No, well, I just thought like in this day and age where everything is digital and you can just put a filter over the top, it's actually quite refreshing to hear that there are still films being made in 16 millimeter.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't believe that you can make digital really look like 16 with intense filtration.
Yeah. We can put a man on the moon, but we can't make a digital camera look like 16 millimeter.
Now, you are a director and star in this film that you've put together. How did you put this together, before that? How did you kind of rally the people around you that you needed to get this done? Because our understanding and our following of you over the years, you've been some sort of a commentator, and now it's a filmmaker. Have you made many films before this one?
No, this is my first feature, but I was an actress prior and had acted in a bunch of low-budget movies that often are made sort of collaboratively. So I've worked, in film, and so knew a lot of people. In my cinematographer, Hunter Zimney, I had worked with before prior on as an actress. Maddie, my co-writer, I've known for a decade basically, and we're all sort of in this New York filmmaker milieu. So my sound guy is someone else that I've known for years. So they were accessible, yeah.
Yeah. In your opinion, what draws creative people to New York? I mean, from our perspective, if you want to get into film and television in a big way, then you go over to Los Angeles. But there always seems like there's a splinter cell of a really deep and burgeoning creative scene in New York. So what makes New York different to anywhere else in the world?
I don't know. I mean, I lived in LA for a long time before coming to New York. I lived in LA for about 5 years and found it very challenging. In New York, I just felt much more, I don't know, maybe because there's a lot of gay guys or Jewish guys, Jewish people in general. I have, I'm Eastern European, so there's more of a shared cultural understanding. It just feels more like my rhythm.
Yep.
I can't, a lot of people are drawn to New York for a lot of different reasons, but that's, for me, it just has been a better fit.
Now, you're talking about the kind of melting pot of kind of film and creatives that you know in New York and how they were accessible, and that's how you got this moving. What I want to talk to you is about some of the themes that are within your film. I mean, I'm very, very excited that you're touching and playing with all this stuff, almost like this Epstein fan fiction. How does it feel to be in an industry that is an arm's length from that kind of story, and then also telling a story about that?
You mean because of the pedophilia?
And just because of New York and how he's around, and a lot of people in film and cinema kind of had things to do with him. I mean, people would be scared to make a joke about that at the Oscars.
Yeah, we're only going off what Ricky Gervais has had to say, because that's really the only thing that makes news here, is when someone, speaks out of school, really.
I made an indie movie, so...
Yeah, it's an indie movie, so you're not worried about having to deal with friends and the like that might have actually been on the boat or been on the plane. Yeah,
I don't know anyone who's been on the Lolita Express. The word hurting their feelings.
Not worried about hurting their feelings.
Yeah.
I was going to say, for years I've followed you on the Red Scare podcast that you host with co-host Anna, and seeing you this year on Succession, that was similar to the last question I asked. It's like you kind of dominate the space online as a commentator with a podcast that really challenges the establishment, particularly the corporate creative world. How does it feel to kind of now be on these major productions? I mean, I know your film's independent, but something like Succession is quite probably surrounded by a lot of people that would be challenged by some of the things you talk about each week.
Well, Succession is primarily UK based,
right? Yeah,
creatively.
Even though it's a bunch of Americans and English people who are pretending to be Australians, and down here it's deeply offensive series down here. I mean.
You mean Australians pretending to be?
Well, yeah, Sarah Snook.
Oh, yeah.
It is. But Rupert Murdoch was our claim to fame, and they've turned him into a Scotsman.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and Succession has its own sort of, critiques of the creative corporate class and the corporate class at large. I don't think it's that much of it's not like I'm on Handmaid's Tale or something, and I've been a fan of Succession since before I was on it, and feel pretty, I don't know, I think everyone really liked me because I was a delightful, well-mannered actress.
Yeah.
And not, I'm not always like a rabid provocateur everywhere I go. I'm multifaceted.
Yeah, we've really had to tone it in when we start meeting people from the top end of town as well with the Batuta Advocate. We just got to rein it in, behave, and that's all part of the game, right? But now, what are you feeling and seeing now with the with your film you've made? What would the genre that people have kind of put on this, and what would the genre that you would have put on this be?
It's a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a psychological, psychosexual thriller, I guess. Obviously, it's very funny, but I don't know if I would call it like a horror comedy because that just has different connotations that don't really apply.
Yeah, not like Scary Movie or one of the great horror comedies. It's a thriller? Is that another term you'd put on it?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you really have to be engaged in the story to really understand it, and it draws you in. But like, in terms of film, it's quite different premise. Did you ever have any doubts about sort of basing it around Jeffrey Epstein, or was this just an absolute, like once you had the idea, you just went for it?
Yeah, we always knew it was going to be about Jeffrey Epstein. That was kind of the Beatle idea.
Yeah.
So then it was just about figuring out, how to tell a story. It wasn't an afterthought. Only if only there was like a notorious pedophile billionaire who's died in jail that I could.
No real point making a fictional version of that.
Yeah.
Was it great fun making it as your first kind of feature? Was it great fun?
Production was fun but stressful. Pre-production was pretty stressful. Cutting it with Sophie was fun. But in general, there was a lot of making indie movies is really hard. Oh. So there was a lot of stressful parts to it.
Yeah.
That were not great fun.
Yeah, okay. I mean, with your earlier stuff, I'm guessing a few short films in the mix there. Did you ever see yourself knuckling down and doing something like that? Did you ever see yourself doing something so stressful, or did you always envision it would be like what you were kind of dreaming about? Was there anything shattered in making a feature-length film? You know what I mean? Like, as a young writer, you think you're just going to be on the beat, chasing stories, and then you end up in a newsroom and you're doing late-night shifts. Was there anything, with the romanticism of making a feature-length, was there something that kind of changed there?
No, I don't think I had any delusions about what it would be like because I had acted in so many low-budget in indie movies and stuff, so I was well acquainted with the challenges. Yeah.
And have you got any plans? Do you reckon you could get a feature done a year from moving forward, or what's the plans from here?
I mean, I made this one so quickly. I started writing it in September, shot it in January of 2020. So I think it would be nice to just work a little more meticulously, and with a little less pressure on myself. So probably not within the year, but maybe in 2023.
Yeah. Was this a big pandemic rush of inspiration? Was it one of those kind of projects where was lockdown play any part in you sitting down and putting this together? As you said, September 2020.
No, September 2019.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sorry.
Because Epstein died in August of 2020.
Yeah.
Or of 2019, sorry. And then we started writing it in September and then shot it in January, right before the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, because we've basically been in one giant kind of lockdown because we had the bushfires before the virus. So basically everyone's been indoors since 2019. So.
Well, it's a penal colony, so you guys are used to it.
Yeah, and we love being legislated, so that's also great.
Yeah, one of your favorite things.
Yeah, it is interesting watching the fringes of society trying to protest against these rolling lockdowns and pandemic bills because there's not many of them. We definitely don't have a tea party pushing back. It's more
no, we just have
150 people.
A huge government which is stay home and we'll pay your entire wage for 2 years. It's okay, goodbye.
Yeah, we cured poverty for 1 year, but now we're back. Thank you for joining us. We know you're on the junket. It's been great speaking to you, and all the best with this film, and we look forward to more from you.
All right, thank you. Very nice to meet you.